Hi everyone, it's Paul from This Design Art. Today we're going to be reviewing the xTool S1 laser engraver. xTool did send this to me for free in exchange for an unbiased review, so please bear that in mind. Let's start off, as we usually do these reviews, with the unboxing. Before we do that, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of today's video, PCBWay. If you need any type of fabrication from PCB etching to CNC machining, PCBWay can help you bring your design into reality. Or maybe you just need advice on how to bring a product to market, PCBWay can even help you with that, with their turnkey OEM services, ranging from proof of concept prototyping to full design, assembly, and distribution. Whatever it is you need, PCBWay have you covered. Now, with previous machines that I've received from xTool, the packaging is always very nice and secure, but actually with the S1 I was a little bit disappointed. This could have easily have been sent back to them because of a cracked panel or screen. I'll tell you why. Basically, when I received the box, I noticed that there was actually a hole in the side of the box. I've still got the box. You can see that we've got this big gaping hole in the side here. Now usually that's not too much of a problem because you'd have foam all around the outer edges, but I noticed that actually only the corners and the top and the bottom was actually contained with foam, and I could actually put my hand through that hole and just touch this part of the machine. I mean, that could have easily have, penetrated the box, could have easily have just cracked this screen. This outer frame here is plastic, it could have easily have cracked that. So that would have been quite a costly mistake for xTool, and I don't know why they cheaped out on not including just some foam on the sides of the packaging, just to make sure that this is perfectly protected. Unboxing and getting it set up was very nice and easy, as my usual experience that I have with xTool machines. This is pretty heavy. I think it's about 20 kilograms, but I was able to lift it out of the box myself and put it on this table. And then the other things you need to do to get it set up is you need to remove just some mounting blocks that stop this main gantry from moving while it's being transported. There is various little bits of sticky tape just to hold things in place. The only things you need to do is you need to install your laser module. I've got the 40-watt version here, and that is just a case of just plugging in a connector. You need to make sure that you've got your power USB and also your air assist nozzle connected to the back of the machine. And that's pretty much it. You can then just load up your design in xTool Create Space and you can just start using it straight away. The machine itself, we've got a plastic lid, we've got plastic panels. The inside, the actual frame itself is a powdered steel, and it is using, I think, stainless steel rods and wheels for the gantry movement. It looks the part, and I think it's still light enough to be considered a mobile device. This is something you could probably pick up, put in a car, set up on a stool, for instance, or like me, when I'm not using it, I can put this into a cupboard. On the lid, there are friction hinges which holds it in place to a certain degree. You can see it just starts to drop there, but I mean, you can hold it at this angle. The seal overall for the machine and the escapement of gases and smoke is very good. I haven't really seen too many issues when I am cutting with this. So the lid does actually do a good job of containing all of those fumes, which is really important. On the back of the machine, you have just the usual USB key lock, which is very handy. You've got the power USB, and then you've also got the air assist, and also there is a additional accessory, a fire extinguisher, which you can plug in as well. And basically that will kind of automatically extinguish any fires that happen if it is detected within this machine, which is really cool. The exhaust port is a 3-inch, which is a little bit annoying because the air extraction unit that I've got uses, I believe, 4-inch, and the air purifier that I use with my xTool F1 is 2.5 inches. So basically none of it connects together very easily. I've used sellotape at the moment to just kind of hook things together, but I will be 3D printing just some adapters to make sure I can connect everything easily. Let's go over the safety features, which to me are definitely one of the biggest selling points of this machine. So starting off with the lid, this is a Class 1 laser safe lid, which means that it is eye safe under all operating conditions, which means you don't need to wear glasses when you've got this thing running. I'm usually having this machine running in the room while I'm working on other things. It's nice not to have to wear those dark green goggles anymore, because it does restrict your eyesight and viewing things when you're working on other little bits and pieces. It is obviously fully enclosed, and I've talked about this numerous times in other videos. I'm definitely going to be moving away from open frame machines. I'm not really going to be reviewing anymore. I'm only going to be reviewing fully enclosed machines. With an open frame machine, it is just half a machine, and you should really factor that into the cost of your machine. Yes, open frame machines are cheaper, but you will need an enclosure, you will need air extraction, so you need to add those into your costs. It is fully enclosed, and as I said, the lid makes a very nice seal. I haven't seen any sort of escape of fumes. Everything is extracted out of the 3-inch exhaust port, and you don't need air extraction because there is a fan here, so it will actually extract it out of the hose, and you can just run that hose out of your window and you will be exhausting it. I personally run the 3-inch exhaust into my AC Infinity because it's much more powerful, so I've got much better airflow. Also, what I've been doing recently is I've been running the 3-inch exhaust into my air purifier, which is the one for the F1. It's not really suited to this type of machine, and then from the F1 air purifier I run it exhausting out of my AC Infinity. So it's really nice to just have a fully enclosed machine, and it's the same with the F1. You know, it's just much easier to kind of move this around and to store it and things like that when you don't have to worry about, you know, things bashing or taking things apart. Just having a single machine you can just pick up, move around and use is just a much better user experience in my opinion, and again that's one of the reasons why I'm moving away from open frame laser engravers. It's got drag chains on all axes, which is really nice. I've had issues previously with other brand machines with cables getting caught on the gantry, so it's really nice that the cabling is very nice and neat, and you've got the drag chains to make sure that everything is going to stay neat and tidy and not get in the way. The lid is not only there to protect your eyes, but if you lift it up when the laser is in operation, it will detect it and it will turn off the laser engraver, which is a very nice safety feature. It's got 4 fire sensors. You can see it's got 2 on the back and 2 at the front here. Again, if it detects a fire, it will turn off the laser engraver. And also you've got LED strips on the front and the back. With the enclosure that I built, I did not put LED strips in it, and it did make visibility and getting things framed and set up a little bit annoying. So you do get a decent amount of visibility in this machine with these strips. Let's talk about some of the other cool features of this machine. So obviously, one of the big things is that you've got a switchable module here for the actual laser engraver. You've got 10 watt, 20 watt, 40 watt, and you've also got a 2 watt infrared laser module available. And they are very, very quick and easy to switch in and out, which is nice. You've got pinpoint positioning, which is basically that these motors are closed loop and they can detect where they are at all times. Previously, you know, when you're using maybe other laser engravers in Lightburn, you're using jog commands to move the laser head. With the S1, you can literally move this laser head around. So I'll just put a bit of white paper here. You might be able to see the crosshair. But basically you have an always on red crosshair, and basically you just move this laser head around to wherever you want to start your 0 point, and then you can go ahead and position your work and you can, you know, do your framing. So this is a very nice feature, and I find it quicker than using, you know, jog commands and menus and those type of things. Now I feel that one thing that they missed with these modules is that there isn't really a good way to actually hold it, and I'm surprised that there isn't any sort of handle built into this, because they want you to move it around, and it's always just a little bit weird. Like, I don't really know where to touch. I'm not sure if I'm going to be like touching anything I shouldn't. You can find a 3D printed handle for this, and it just makes, yeah, holding the module a little bit easier, kind of keeps your hands away from all of these areas underneath that you probably shouldn't really be touching. Now what's also very cool about this pinpoint positioning is you can add marking shapes on xTool creative space using this laser head. What I mean by that is that you can set various different shapes. I believe you've got a rectangle, you've got a polygon, a circle, and also a line. So you can just set up wherever your work is. You can make a mark here, and you can make a mark over here, for instance, and then in xTool creative space, this area will be marked on the software, so then you can place all of your designs in it. Now it's a very nice feature, especially if you're like me, for instance, where you're using like scrap material and you want to get the most out of your material. You could just put this down here, you could mark out a polygon of this space here, and then you can place your designs into it and you get the most out of your material. I found this really, really cool, and I was using it a lot, and it is very, very accurate. There is one example here where I'm using the circle marking, and I've got a single, one of my keychains loaded up. I've got it then marked on xTool creative space. I then position my design in that, engrave it, and it is spot on. So it works really, really well even for those small designs. Another cool feature is one-click autofocus. So basically there is a pin here on the side of the laser module. you press focus and it will then probe your material. It'll also probe at the back here. It'll work out the offset and then you've got your focus. It takes it one step further as well in xTool Creative Space in that you can then offset your focus on your material. So this is really, really handy if you are, cutting through thicker materials, because generally you want your focus point of the laser to be in the middle of the material. And I always found when you've got machines where you've got to focus things manually, you would set your position on the top of the material, and then you just kind of move the module down a little bit and just hope that you're kind of getting it halfway in between the material. With this, you get it precise as you need. And you can see a quick example here of how offsetting the focus, it does really help with reducing the charring. This is the same speeds. The only difference is the offset in focus. I set it to the middle of the material, 5mm. This is a 10mm bit of ash wood. And you can see that the charring is reduced quite significantly by using this. Now you can also use this autofocus probe to do curved surfaces. So it will take an array of focus points and it will map the contour of your material, and then it will be able to engrave on that contour to make sure you've got the focus point exactly where you need it to be. To be honest with you, I haven't really found many real world applications of where I would need to use this, aside from just maybe needing to engrave a bowl. I did struggle to find anything around the house that is actually curved enough that it would actually need to be engraved. And also you do not have a lot of height clearance with this current setup. There is an extension base that you can get, which you can use the rotary engraving accessory, and also I'm guessing that it's probably going to be better for doing those type of curved engravings. If you've got like a deep bowl, for instance, I mean, you're not really going to obviously fit it in here. Even if you take out the honeycomb bed, you still don't get that much clearance. Next, let's talk about the laser itself. It's 40 watts. This is the most powerful laser that I have tested yet. The previous machines that I tested, I think they went up to 20 watt. There's not much to say about it. It's a very nice laser module. It is, twice as powerful as what I've used before. 40 watt is starting to get into the area where things start to feel fast enough that I can use them for practical applications. And by that, I mean that I'm someone that uses laser engravers not really for ornamental or craft things. I'm really using it for more practical things. If I need to make something out of wood, for instance, maybe a jig, or maybe I need to make, I don't know, storage or some sort of tool, I would generally use my CNC machine because I'm usually working in, I guess, 12 to 18mm plywood. That's pretty much what I use for most of my woodworking projects. 40 watt, it really does start to get close to what the speeds I can do on a CNC machine. And in some cases, I would actually rather use a laser engraver to cut out things from wood. You don't have to worry about any sort of clamping and setting up the work. And also I find that it's easier to exhaust smoke and fumes than it is to exhaust sawdust. With the 40 watt, I found that it was about twice as quick as the cutting speeds that I was getting from my previous 20 watt machines that I tested. I've seen even more powerful laser modules come out recently. So these diode lasers are really starting to get into the area of like the CO2 lasers. And what I like about the fact that, a swappable module is that I'm hoping that, maybe in the future xTool will bring out a 50, 60, 70, 80 watt laser module. Because I think 40 watt is starting to get to the point where it's usable. I would say if I was looking to do a lot of engraving, I would probably be opting for the F1. That thing is just lightning fast. It's a much smaller laser dot, so you can get much, much finer detail. But I mean, you can still do decent engraving on the S1, and the speeds are good. But I mean, let's talk about the speeds, because that is probably my biggest issue that I have with this machine. It can go up to, I think, 600mm per second. But the problem is that because I'm guessing that this is such a big laser module, it's got so much weight that once you start getting into those very high speeds, especially when it comes to engraving, in order to compensate for that acceleration and deceleration of the laser head, the overscanning really does start to mean that it actually takes longer to engrave at higher speeds than it does at lower speeds. If you're wondering what overscanning is, basically in order to make sure that you are getting a consistent speed of that laser dot in the engraving area, in order to make sure that is consistent, you need to give some distance before and after for the laser module to be able to accelerate up to that speed and then to decelerate, turn around and come backwards and forwards. And the reason why you want a consistent speed is obviously, if you're moving slower across the material with that laser dot, it could potentially burn a bigger line essentially because it's spending more time in that area. So you need to make sure that you are getting a consistent speed across that engraving area. And what happens is that what I found is that once you start going above 250 millimeters per second, the time to complete the project actually starts to increase. Up from 0 to 250, obviously the faster you run it, the quicker your project time completion becomes. And I will say that xTool Create Space, a very nice recent update in that they do give you the preview mode. You can actually see how long the job is going to take. Previously you couldn't. So you don't actually need to run the test to actually see it. You can just set up your speeds, you can hit start and it will be able to tell you how long it's going to take. So yes, this machine is advertised at 600 millimeters per second, but I don't think I'd really run it at 600 millimeters per second ever, because yeah, it needs time to be able to accelerate and decelerate, which just adds to the distance traveled that this laser head has to make. And another issue that I found with that speed issue is that when it comes to doing material tests, I found that it did mean that the material tests were actually inaccurate. And this is a really good example in that when you're doing a material test, usually you're doing small squares. If you're doing it from, like 0 to 300 millimeters per second, it doesn't actually have enough distance for it to be able to accelerate up to that speed. So really at the higher speed times here, it's actually really not engraving at that speed because it isn't able to accelerate. So it means that you don't get accurate results. So for instance, 100% power, 236 millimeters per second, I was able to cut this. But when I put those speeds into something where it can actually get up to that speed, like a long line like this, for instance, it weren't actually cutting through it. And this is a good example. You can see that this is at 300 millimeters per second. Now here, where it is got a short distance to travel, it isn't actually able to get up to 300 millimeters per second. It's probably moving at say 100 millimeters per second, and therefore it is able to cut the shorter distances. And also when it is accelerating up to 300 millimeters per second, it's moving slower, which means it can cut. But then in the middle, when it actually reaches the 300 millimeters per second, it's actually too fast for it to cut the material. So you wouldn't actually want to use 300 millimeters per second. I hope that makes sense. You can see that on these long rectangles as well. You often see the shorter edges where the laser module is going to be traveling slower. It does cut through the paper, but then when it's got enough distance to actually reach up to a higher speed, it doesn't actually cut through. Yeah, it does mean that making material tests for faster speeds is a little bit difficult. Now, to be honest with you, you're only really going to be using these fast speeds for engraving. When it comes to cutting, most of the cutting that you're doing, especially when you get into thicker materials, you're looking at between probably 1 millimeter per second, maybe up to like 100 millimeters per second. And in that case, the material tests, they come out fine. With a 40 watt laser, I was actually really surprised how much of a indent you can make in metal. I've got some mild steel here. I thought that I would only be able to, do decent markings in steel with the infrared laser module. And I know that on my F1, for instance, you'd usually switch to the 2 watt laser if you want to do metal engravings. With the 40 watt, it is powerful enough to make a serious dent in metal. I was actually really surprised how much this takes off. I reckon this is a good, maybe, I don't know, 0.1 of a millimeter that is taking off. And you can see how deep this etching is in that I'm actually able to make a etching. So in printmaking, you would score or mark a metal plate, and then you would rub ink into that, and then you press it, and then it picks up the ink on the paper. And as you can see, it is good enough to be able to do etchings. With the F1, when you do the laser engraving, it is marking the surface, but it is such a shallow depth of cut that you really can't feel any indent. But here, I mean, I can really run my fingernail across this and I can really pick up some depth to this engraving. I'm not too sure what real world use this is going to be, but it will actually be interesting. In the future, I'm going to get some steel shim stock, and I'm going to get various thicknesses. I'm just going to see how much you can actually cut with this laser, what type of thickness, because I think with a good few passes, it does take quite a while, but yeah, I reckon you will be able to cut through very, very thin steel shim, which can be useful in some cases. Now, this is the basic package. I just want to quickly talk about the things that you get with it. You do get the honeycomb bed, which is nice. It does come with markings and measurements, and I did actually forget to say that the cutting area of the S1 is about 500 by 300. It's a nice big honeycomb bed. I'm not too sure if I like a honeycomb bed. I would rather probably a pin bed, because I do find that some of the smoke does actually get trapped in the honeycomb grid matrix, and when you lift up the material, some smoke does sometimes come out, so it can't actually get it exhausted out when it is stuck in this honeycomb. Also, you get the air assist unit, and I mean, this is pretty much just a nicely packaged up basic air assist that you get with a lot of machines. It does look nice though. It's a nice plastic molding, and you've got settings here. You've got auto, 1, 2, 3, and maximum. And I've just kept it on auto, and basically within xTool Creative Space you can assign the different types of commands that you do. If you're doing an engraving, a cut for instance, you can set kind of what power you want to be using for the air assist. But yeah, it does a good job. Air assist is always very useful when you're doing any sort of laser engraving work. So yeah, make sure that you are using an air assist. And I believe that this does come with the basic package, but I have seen the packages change from time to time. So sometimes this is not included. Sometimes you can just buy the base model without the honeycomb bed and the air assist, but at the moment the basic package does come with these two things, which is nice. Another very small negative that I did come across was that the exhaust tube that I'm using, the 3-inch that comes with it, I did notice a little bit of leakage of smoke around the point where it does screw into the plastic housing, and I've just put some sellotape around that to stop it from leaking. Now, I did only notice this when I was running the 3-inch exhaust into my F1 air purifier. When I was running the 3-inch into my AC Infinity and I got loads of airflow, it was not leaking out of this bit here. What I'm guessing is happening is because the F1 air purifier is really only designed for the F1, basically it doesn't have enough suction to pull out the smoke from this pipe, and it's just probably hanging around here. It's probably getting built up in this this black pipe bit before it comes into the F1 air purifier, and therefore it's just finding its way out of the tube. But now that I've added tape and I take my air quality readings, and it does do a very good job. The F1 air purifier, it does actually work well enough. As long as you seal up the ports and you've got the right connections, it will actually work with the S1. Now generally you should get probably the more powerful air purifier. I believe it is around $500 or $600 for the S1. But if, like me, you've already got the F1, you've already got the F1 purifier, it is nice to know that for a little bit of hacking, you can get it working with the S1. One other thing that I did find a little bit annoying, and this is coming from the F1, where you do have a very nice setup for having jigs. The honeycomb, you can't really kind of place it anywhere securely. It would be really nice if it was designed in a way that did actually fix into the bed, so you did always have a a specific position, you had absolute coordinates, so you could lay out your work that way. And if you are using jigs and those type of things, that's where it is really handy. I guess that a way around it is that you could just use the red crosshair on the S1 as a way to align your jigs and just make sure that you've got some sort of reference to that crosshair in your jigs. It's just much quicker and easier if you do have some sort of setup where you can just drop things in and it is always in the same position. I mean, even this tray at the bottom, it's got rounded corners, so it means that you can't actually put the honeycomb bed right into the corner of it to get it always set up accurately. So that could become a little bit annoying to get things set up. So that's pretty much it. It's an expensive machine, especially considering that this price range, you start to get up into the CO2 options that are available. I do think that for a diode though, the fact that it's got very nice safety features, it really does feel, for me, this feels like the first machine that anyone could really just pick out of a box, set up and get going with it. I mean, that is the same with the F1 as well. I did kind of get that sense, but I do feel that this is a little bit better in terms of its enclosure, and I do like the fact that everything is nice and contained within this box. With the F1, for instance, when I was using the slide extension, it does mean that it's not an enclosed laser engraver anymore. There is a bit of leakage that you get, but with this, it is just one solid box that is going to keep in all of those nasty fumes. You've got a decent work area. 500 by 300 is good enough to be able to get out a lot of work in it, and you can do a lot of batch work, which is nice. With the 40-watt module, I think it's definitely powerful enough for anything under 6mm really. I think still, like 18mm plywood and kind of functional materials like that, I think you really do need just, probably like 100-watt CO2 laser for stuff like that. But yeah, for anything under 6mm, any material, this can get through it very nice and quick. And with all the xTool machines that I've tested, they do pair very nicely with the software, and that is quite a nice bonus because it is starting to get better in its functions. It is constantly updated. I still do feel that the vector drawing aspect of it is very, very basic. I'd much rather use Illustrator for that. But I mean, yeah, for pretty much anything else, getting work set up, creating jigs, doing engraving and those type of things, xTool Creative Space hasn't really given me any issues. I do wish they would sort out their cloud saving feature though. That is just really, really annoying the way they've got it set up. If you have any questions about the machine, please do put them in the comments below. Hopefully you found this review useful. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you're interested in other laser engraving content, I've got a playlist of all the stuff that I've reviewed and made, so be sure to check that out. And that is it for today. I will catch you all later.